there are two type of guardrails in the AWS control tower. One is the preventive guardrails and other is the detective guardrails. So in preventive guardrails, AWS has some kind of service control policies. So if service control policy is applicable on the root level, on the root level plus on the organization unit, and under all these accounts, these service control policies will be automatically enforced. For example, once you have the AWS SSO enabled, you can create a service control policy that nobody should create an AWS access keys in your AWS accounts, which come up under this. You can implement this policy on a specific organization unit or on the root level. So, for example, if you have implemented that no one should create AWS access keys on this root level, this SCP will be implemented to all the child accounts and no one will be able to implement this. So this rule will be automatically, you know, enforced to all the child accounts and it will be always compliant. So these are called preventive guardrails. You can prevent anything to happen in your AWS account. You can prevent someone to create a VPC. So only the network account or through the networking account you can create a VPC. You can prevent anything within your AWS account. You can prevent someone to create a AWS S3 bucket, which is public. So this control tower comes up with a lot of preventive guardrails. Plus, you can have a detective and remediable guardrails as well. For example, using AWS Service Card Config, AWS has a lot of provide a lot of detective guardrails as well. I will give you an idea, an example of a rule. For example, you have a Linux servers. You can create a guardrail that if someone opens port 22 to public to some of my one of my Linux instance, I should be notified. So as soon as someone does that, you will be notified. So it will be seeing this AWS config that whether you are compliant with this rule. As soon as you are not compliant to this rule, it will give you the notification. So you can implement guardrails as per your business needs or as per your organizational policies. You can implement preventive guardrails. You can implement the detective guardrails as well, and AWS Control Tower comes up with both. The guardrails examples, for example, there are some examples of the guardrails which have to implement it. So, for example, it's a detective guardrail, enable multi-factor authentication for the root user. It's super important. It's very critical actually. So you have to implement the multi-factor authentication on your AWS root user, and it is strongly recommended by AWS. So once you deploy this, it will having all these guardrails automatically implemented. This allow public read access to S3. So you cannot allow someone to read your data which you have stored within the S3. You can enable AWS config in all available regions. It's a preventive guardrail, so you can implement the config in all the AWS regions. So in case if something goes out of the compliant, you should be knowing that you should be notified. This allow policy change to log archival account. This is a preventive guardrails as well, that you shouldn't be uh, allowing someone to change in your logging archival account. Nobody should alter these logs. So it's a preventive guardrail and it's mandatory. And integrate CloudTrail events with CloudWatch logs. Again, it's a preventive guardrail that you should integrate the CloudTrail events. So CloudTrail is a service which logs all the activity which is happening in your AWS accounts to make sure that you are tracking everything and you are storing them in CloudWatch logs. Plus, again, disallow Amazon S3 bucket that are not versioning enabled. It's a detective guardrail in case somebody creates the S3 bucket which is not having versioning enabled, it will notify you. Again, it's elective. If you want it, you can have it. Disallow delete actions on Amazon S3 bucket without MFA. Nobody should be able to delete anything from your buckets. Nobody should be able to delete your data. So you can have a detective guardrail. In case if somebody does that, you will be notified. You can have an MFA to delete the data from your AWS S3 buckets.